More questions surrounding contracts being issued at Bamsi. Alarming statistics on gender-based violence. What's being done to stop the social ill? Physicians calling for NHI to be delayed, plus trial underway for the cop accused of child porn. We've got those stories and a lot more coming up tonight. I'm Kyle Joaquin, and NB12 starts now. Top in news tonight, it turns out one of the companies awarded a contract for the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute was created just in time for the contract to be issued. That company is Andarco Construction Limited, owned by a former PLP cabinet minister. The revelation has created quite a dilemma since Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andy Rollins brought up claims of cronyism surrounding Bamsi contracts, and today, after this latest revelation, he is demanding that both the owner of the company and the government lay everything on the table to ensure there is true transparency.
How could you form this company unless you were already advised, just before the contract was issued, I might add, unless you yourself were in communication with those issuing the contract? It doesn't add up.
And that's why Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andy Rollins believes there may be more to Andarco Construction Limited being awarded the contract to build a female dormitory at Bamsi. Darrell Roll, who is a former PLP minister, admitted that he is a partial owner of the company and that while he could not remember the figure, the contract is worth some $2.6 million. These latest findings were revealed in this morning's National Review in the Nassau Guardian. According to the findings, Andarco was incorporated on April 30th, 2013. Several of the contracts for Bamsi, including the one for Andarco, were awarded just a few months later. While the timing of the company's incorporation could be considered to be a coincidence, Rollins said there is a lot of explaining to be done.
Let Mr. Roll go before the Bahamian people and explain to them why he was deserving of that contract. And how is it that he could receive a contract just after incorporating a company? Surely, when PLPs think of contractors, Darrell Roll's name does not come to mind. Surely there are people who have long track records with the PLP, who have evidence of having done work on time, under budget, with the requisite insurance. Surely those people could have been considered, and not a former cabinet minister.
There are 5,000 shares in Andarco Construction. 1,500 belong to a Samuel Green. 1,750 are jointly owned by a D. Elliott Roll and Shakira Roll, and another 1,750 shares owned by a Javon Roll. Now, looking at the executive makeup of the company, Samuel Green is the president and director. Darrell Roll is the secretary and a director. Javon Roll is a treasurer and director, and the assistant secretary is an Yvette Bain. Darrell Roll has already denied that his company received the contract due to his political connections, but Rollins once again brought up the dilemma surrounding the male dorm, which was set afire last year and is now set to cost millions more than the original building. It was built by Audley Hanna of Paradigm Construction, who was found to have been awarded the contract despite not having the prerequisite all-risk insurance. Hanna is a stalwart counselor in the PLP.
I think that we should cause the government to be far more transparent in this entire Bamsi ordeal. Right. I don't buy the notion that they need a bigger dorm. I think it's a convenient excuse, and I think it's a way to pump more money into the Bamsi project that is going to be wasted, just like the previous $2.5 million was wasted.
Rollins said cronyism isn't something new to the Bahamas, as successive governments have been awarding contracts to their party supporters for decades now. But he said he's even more disappointed in the younger members of the cabinet, or the new generation of leaders, whom he believes doesn't have the guts to voice their opinions.
The problem that I have with many of the young, new generation members of the PLP is they only say privately the problems that they find with the state of leadership in this country today. They say it privately, but publicly, they sing for their supper. It's sad.
The prevalence of gender-based violence in the Bahamas is alarming and of great concern, and officials said today they are hoping to unveil a problem that is far too common and needs to be addressed. The National Task Force for Gender-Based Violence formally handed over its report entitled A Strategic Plan to Address Gender-Based Violence at the Office of the Prime Minister this morning. That report found, among other things, that the Bahamas ranks at the top when it comes to the issue. Dana Smith reports.
The report noted that gender-based violence is a major public health problem in the Caribbean, and the Bahamas is no exception. Prime Minister Perry Christie said when it comes to crime, it takes more than a government with the right policies to address the issue, but he's confident his administration is on the right path.
Crime is so multifaceted in its manifestations that, and this report confirms it, that it takes more than a government with the right policies and the right strategy to bring about the desired results. I'm confident that we are on the right path to dealing with all of the social problems we have, and that many of them will take much longer than even I anticipated. But the point is that we are doing the right things and making the right decisions.
The report says when it comes to gender-based violence, the statistics are alarming and of great concern. In some areas of GBV on a per capita basis, the Bahamas ranks globally in the highest percentile. Among the report's findings, a major barrier to access to justice for women in cases of sexual and gender-based violence is the negative attitude towards women and girl victims. One such harmful norm is a culture of disbelief, whereby women and girls reporting violence are assumed to be lying with respect to its occurrence and seriousness. Task Force Chairperson, retired Justice Ruby Nottage, said the roots of gender-based violence can be linked to ideas embedded in Bahamian culture that power is associated with masculinity and patriarchy.
Our male-female relationships and discourse are dysfunctional and the product of deep and seemingly irreconcilable conflict. When we speak as persons one to the other, eventually violence erupts.
Nottage said the Bahamas of yesterday reflected the male's role as provider, and both the material and the ideological relations of the male-female gender reinforce the dominant status of men and the subordinate status of women.
These belief systems have deep roots in our culture. They legitimate the man's right to control, dominate, and to use intimidation, coercion, threats, and force. Without the shadow of a doubt, they remain intact among many men and women in today's Bahamas.
The report said these belief systems are reflected in a recent survey of Bahamian high school students. 37.7% of male respondents and 12.3% of female respondents agreed that men should discipline their female partners. It is reflected also, the report said, in the current backlash emanating from the constitutional amendment on gender equality. The report also noted 94% of women of Haitian descent who were interviewed reported experiencing some level of violence at the hands of their partner, and 50% believe that women should never go to the police for assistance. It is also reported that from 2005 to 2010, 45 women were killed as a result of intimate partner violence. Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade highlighted one difficulty associated with reporting domestic abuse.
We see far too many cases where, even when women come forward to complain that they've been beaten, battered, and the bruises are there to show, that their own family members would make interventions to prevent them going through the court system. And the family members of the perpetrators are even more aggressive in reaching out to victims and trying to get them to recant.
The report also addressed rape, stating its magnitude and impact in the country demands further attention. It said the Bahamas has the highest incident of rape per capita in the Caribbean. The UN Women narrative on gender-based violence in the Caribbean cites, while the worldwide average for rape was 15 per 100,000, the Bahamas had an average of 133. The report noted that sexual assault is one of the most underreported crimes, and of those cases that are reported to police, most remain unsolved. Perpetrators are never identified, and those that are, most are never brought to justice, and fewer are ever convicted. The report also found that child sexual abuse is seriously underreported and commonplace, with 961 reported cases of sexual abuse and 118 reported cases of incest from 2006 to 2013.
Thought we were dealing with a subject that people were loath to speak about. They speak behind their hands. Do you know who's beat women? Do you know who do this? Do you know who's cruel to their children? And that this effort in itself was bringing to the public's attention, opening it right up so that we can be honest with ourselves in our community as to the challenges that exist. And one of the great challenges in any developing country is for the governance of the country to know what exists. And if I'm going to single out any particular approach, that this has in fact resulted in our being able to unveil the problem and bring it to the forefront.
Nottage said although she wouldn't say the issue of GBV is being covered up, we are silent about it. And she proposed the introduction of a GBV authority, which will have a national mandate to eradicate violence. Another recommendation was a family court system, and Christie said plans for that are well advanced. Government will also establish a Department of Family and Gender Affairs focused on strengthening and empowering families to socialize children to be the kinds of citizens that we need them to be. Also in the works, programs to address children who have been exposed to violence and to engage men and boys. Also, Christie said, as a precursor to the creation of the GBV Authority, a GBV Secretariat will be established to ensure operational oversight of the implementation plan. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.